Good morning, everybody, and welcome to podcast number 8 from Make It Happen Leadership. Very excited to be here in beautiful Cancun today. We're down here just wrapping up our yearly kickoff 2025. I'd like to welcome Robert Kistner Jr. and Bryan Kistner, my two sons. I'd like to get their feedback. Let's talk a little bit about takeaways from our 2025 kickoff. As related to leadership, Bryan, what are your thoughts on how the kickoff and what you saw and what you heard?
No, I think it's always fantastic when everybody comes together, leaders being able to express what they want to accomplish to their leadership and then talking about what they're going to hold accountable for the people underneath them. I took what you said very clearly, gratitude and inspiration, making sure we're very grateful for what we already accomplished, but we're inspired for what we will be accomplishing moving forward.
Bobby, what are your thoughts? What were your takeaways?
Well, I think the closing message from Mr. Gonzalez about staying humble and, staying in the idea that there's so much more to learn still, right? And so much more to improve on and so much that can be done better still, that we haven't arrived. There's always more to do.
Yes, that was a great message. Let's jump on that for a minute. Humbleness. I think that's a great leadership skill, that ability to be humble in your leadership. I think it opens the door to the ability to continue to learn. That message of leadership that we talked about in the book a little bit, where we continue to grow and learn, I think that requires some humbleness. What are your thoughts, Bryan?
Yeah, I think innovation through humbleness, the idea of being able to create something new because you still believe there's something new to be created. I think that's very important. I think that people being able to see you vulnerable, which is something that you mentioned a lot in the book, people underneath you being able to see that vulnerability of assuming responsibility when there's more to learn or when something's been done not correctly by yourself and taking ownership really helps out. And I think that was a little bit of the message, just staying in that idea that just because someone else is doing something, shouldn't be an impact or fear towards what you're doing. It should be like, okay, what of that could really improve or adapt or transform what I'm already doing?
Good point. One of the things and for those of you that don't know the name Fernando Gonzalez is a developer, visionary, entrepreneur that has built a very large hospitality company here in Mexico. And during his speech, one of the comments he made was a quote from Socrates that said, I know nothing. Let's talk about that. I know nothing. How's that apply in leadership, Bobby?
Well, I think you have to take a fresh approach every day, right? You have to not limit yourselves with the idea that you're already doing the best there is. You already have the secret sauce, and you're already doing everything you can. There is always room for improvement. In particular, the way he applied it was there's always room to take best practices from other tracks, from other businesses, from other divisions even. And actually something you said, Bryan, about even from people underneath you, to let them express, ideas to improve. Yes, many times a lot of them have already been tried, but you never know when you're going to get that nugget of those fresh eyes seeing an opportunity that, because we've been doing it for so long, we no longer see, right?
Yeah, I love that vision. The other thing that brought to mind, I was sitting there thinking when he said that, I thought to myself, that is the direct opposite and the biggest danger that I've had in my life in growing and learning in leadership is the opposite of that, which is I know what I know. I know what I know. How many times in leadership have we stumbled because our immediate reaction is, oh, I know that, or I knew that, or I've done that. What do you think, Bryan? How do you protect yourself against that as a bold leader? How do you make sure you check that at the door?
Yeah, well, I think it's difficult, obviously because we get lost in it sometimes. But, right now that I've been researching a lot of how to properly raise a kid, the idea is you don't want to tell them what to do, because then they want to do the opposite, right? And when they come to you and you go like, well, I already know that doesn't work, you got to do it this way. Well, they're just like kids, your people that follow you are then going to not trust that because they haven't really had the opportunity to learn it themselves. So I think the idea is, how do you put guardrails so they can go through the bumbling line but stay in the lane to still get to the one point? And And I think in that, going back and forth, there could be a lot of innovative things that can be learned. And I mean, the reality is today we're living a life of people that did things like the way we did it, but better every single time, right? I mean, look at the beautiful resorts that we're in. They got better every single time. Imagine if just because they were already great, he said it's great enough. I mean,
That is, it's easy. Someone has said during the kickoff, I heard a great phrase where the enemy of exceptional is great. You know, enemy of excellence is great. Apply that. How do we do that? You know, it's such a challenge for us as leaders in the day to day. You know, think about your day. Think about as you're in the war, right? Bullets are flying. How do we remember that maybe we know what we know, but maybe we don't know everything, you know?
I think that is the difficult part, right? Sometimes you can't argue with success, and when you've been doing something a certain way and it's achieving great results, you think, well, I'm doing great, right? But that's the whole point, to be able to break it down and think, well, how could we do better? How can we go for excellence? It's that pursuit of perfection. And you have to really consciously make an effort, sometimes to break the process that you're using, to innovate and do something new, right? And it's hard. It's hard because people are resistant to change. It's a natural thing to be resistant to change, and especially when something's working.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other, you know, there was another topic I heard that was really powerful, and sort of a conflict because it was expressed two different ways. And it's only a conflict if you look at it as a conflict, but this thing about processes versus people and people versus processes. You heard one person get up and talk about, we're focusing on the process because the people, the word of the mistake of the verbiage was, the people don't matter. The people matter, but I think his message was, if we get the process perfected, then we can train the people to the process. And then you heard someone get up and debate that and say, well, processes will always be here, but people are the key. You know, it created an interesting paradox for me as I was listening to that, because I truly believe people are the key, but I also believe so strongly in measurements that puts the onus back on processes. Thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I love something that I heard, you know, people make people. You know, I think that was very important. I'm a very big systematic person. I believe in procedures and having everything measurable, right? But I do believe inspiration drives success. So I think that's where they meet. You have to have certain procedures and systems for people to follow, but the way that you connect with your people is what really is going to drive the result. The system can be great, but without the people, it cannot operate. And the people can be great, but without the proper system, you know, you cannot obtain the goal that you're looking for. I mean, we could all be building a car, but if there's not a procedure to follow, a blueprint, I might not end with the car I'm looking for, right? But inspired people might give me a better car than I originally planned to build. So I think that's where they sort of mesh. You know, neither one is right or wrong. I just think the reality is people do the work, especially in leadership. You know, I mean, AI is an incredible thing, but being able to feel and empathize with what someone's feeling and their why, that is something that's very human, and it requires that person to be able to connect, right? Procedures is about, once I've connected with that person, then I send them on his way of what he should do to get to our planned goal, right?
Good. Bobby, emphasize on how you use a process to enhance your interaction with people in leadership.
Okay, well, I think for me, the importance of the process helps you when, you know, as humans, sometimes we have a certain level of energy. Sometimes we bring a certain emotional charge. And when you have a process, a defined process of working with someone, that makes sure that if you're not quite at that energy level that day, you're still going to go through the steps that need to be done and not take a shortcut, which is a tendency that can happen. When you're not feeling that emotional level, you can take a shortcut. So the process helps you not take shortcuts. Now, applying it in our industry, that makes sure, for example, every tour gets the full presentation, right? Now, applying it to leadership, I guess you make sure that when you're giving feedback to your middle management or feedback to your people, you go through the full process of the good, the bad, the ugly, and then what we can do to improve, right? And not take any shortcuts in how you give that feedback, because sometimes people can take very negative emotion to feedback if you don't go through the full process.
Yeah, accountability, but without deprimentation, right?
So let me tie this all together. So if I'm hearing you right, you know, if you got the proper measurements, you create processes, you measure the process so you can refine the process, make the proper process, continue to measure that process, then you take that tool and that helps you with people in the sense of you always have the process high, low, I'm up, I'm down, I'm sick, I'm not feeling great. If I follow the process, I've got the guidance to keep going and be able to develop into a better leadership position with my people.
And sometimes the process will help you stay in track, right? It's like the golfer that has practiced 30,000 swings, right? And every time he gets up to the ball, he stands the same way, he adjusts his hips the same way, he does the same back, and then every time he hits it the same, right? So the day he's not feeling it, just standing up and doing the same setup process will make sure he does a better delivery on striking the ball.
For me, that then also goes back to the people portion of it, because it's being able to define the small wins, even when it's gray and cloudy and raining outside. If I'm following the process and I'm doing the process properly, I may not get the big win on this particular sales opportunity or this particular meeting, but if I follow the process, I do have the wins that keep me going every day and motivating people. So as a leader, I want to emphasize the process so they can see their own wins and stay motivated to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's like a foundation of a building. You can't really define which one's the most important one. They all need to work together to keep that building strong, steady, being able to grow up high, right? You know, so yes, sometimes we can debate which one's more important, but the reality is they all have to be in unison. That's what's important, how they're working together, more than just which one of themselves is the most pivotal one. It really is, are they all there?
And you need them all. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this podcast. Make it happen.
Make it happen.